connects the whole body is the cardiovascular system. And of course, the purpose of the cardiovascular system is basically to make sure that we get blood flow to every part of our body, because blood carries all the essential things that our cells need to continue to live. Now, cells obviously need nutrients, so when we eat, our digestive system helps put the nutrients into our blood, and then our blood can transport those nutrients to our cells. Oxygen that we breathe is put into the blood also to go to our cells. And our cells produce waste, both nitrogenous waste through the breakdown of proteins usually, and also through the breakdown of carbohydrates in our sugars, and we actually get carbon dioxide as a byproduct. So our blood is transporting the nutrients and the oxygen to the cells, but it's transporting the carbon dioxide and the waste away from the cells. So again, this is truly a system that unites our whole body. The main organs, of course, are the heart and our blood vessels, veins, arteries, capillaries. One of my favorite systems to talk about is the lymphatic system, because it's so important in our health and in our immunity, and it's so prominent in our body, but yet a lot of people are very unfamiliar with it. So most people know we have arteries and veins, but most people don't realize we also have some vessels called lymphatic vessels that are very similar to our veins. Instead of carrying blood, they carry a derivative fluid from our blood called lymph. And the lymph actually originally comes from our blood, so our lymphatic system returns the lymph to our blood. So that's why we see that it says returns fluids to the blood vessels, because those fluids called lymph actually came from the blood. But while it's doing that, it actually runs through lymph nodes, and most of us are familiar that we have lymph nodes, at least in the neck region, but we actually have them all over our body, and they're basically little storage places for white blood cells. So when we're bringing this lymph fluid back to the heart, we're carrying anything that's in it through the lymph nodes, and we're activating these white blood cells against any type of infection that may have gotten into the body. The respiratory system is a system we're aware of every day because we breathe, 24 hours a day, all the time, and we really notice our breathing if we ever have trouble with it. But the whole purpose of breathing is so we can get oxygen into our blood and get carbon dioxide out of our blood. And of course, we're also bringing in a few other gases such as nitrogen, but really oxygen and carbon dioxide are the things we're most concerned with. We're wanting to get carbon dioxide out of our system and oxygen into our system. So we have this system that basically opens up to the outside world, and that actually works off of pressure gradients. So we'll be talking about that later on when we get into the system. We can see that our organs involved in this are things like our lungs, which of course is where the air exchange takes place with our blood. Then we have our trachea and bronchus, which deliver the oxygen after it comes through our nasal cavity and pharynx down into the larynx, down to the glottis, and into the trachea. So we're constantly using this system. Unfortunately, some people abuse this system by putting contaminants down in there that shouldn't be there. But an important system for health, and it definitely affects other systems. Well, I don't know about you, but I think this may be my favorite system, the digestive system, because I enjoy good food. I enjoy eating, Obviously, the reason we have a digestive system is because we need to take organic material from outside of our body and inorganic materials such as water and even some of our electrolytes. And we need to introduce those to the body because our cells need these things to survive. So when we eat something, part of what's going to happen is we're actually going to break down what we eat because we need to get it small enough to where it can go into the blood and be absorbed into the cells and absorbed into the blood in the first place from the small intestine, but then carried from the blood to our cells and absorbed into the cells. And then what we don't absorb into our blood, then we're going to eliminate as a waste product. So we see that a lot of our growth, when we do a dissection or look at models, we can notice from gross anatomy a lot of the different organs that are affiliated with the digestive system, and such as the esophagus, the stomach, small intestine, large intestine, and rectum. A very important system, of course they're all important, but another important system is our urinary system, and its main function is basically to filter our blood and to remove those wastes that our blood was carrying from the waste from our cells. So we need to get those out of our body, because intuitively we know that if those wastes would build up, if our kidneys weren't working, then that would actually create disease and even death. So we have to get those wastes out. Now, another thing that's going to happen is this is going to help us maintain our acid-base balance, and we'll get into that a little bit more when we get into what's actually going on in the kidneys. And then another important thing is this is going to regulate basically how much water do we keep in the body versus how much can we afford to lose, and what can we afford to lose as far as our ions and electrolytes. What can we keep? What can we get? What do we need to get rid of? So this system basically keeps us healthy by just getting the wastes out of our body and working directly with the cardiovascular system to do that. We can see that there's not a lot of organs here, but the main organ we'll talk about is the kidney, and the kidney is where the actual filtration takes place, and about 25% of our blood at any one time will be flowing through our kidneys. So we also are going to transport the urine from the kidney to the ureter, down to the urinary bladder, and eventually out of the body from the urethra. The reproductive system, of course, is what allows us to allow our species to continue. It is tied to some of our other systems, both the nervous system, the endocrine system. It's tied to a lot of things, but it is the one system that if it wasn't operating to where we could use it, we would still survive. Whereas the other systems, if any of them totally quit operating, then it would definitely affect everything else. Earlier we said that cells were the lowest level. This showed living functions or the functions of something alive. And so now let's explain what we mean. What are those different functions? What are those different things that biologically make something alive? First of all, we know that it has to have some sort of boundary around it that separates it from other living things. Now, they may actually work together as cells working together to form tissues. Tissues are working together to form organs, and organs working together to form systems, and systems working together to form us. But there is some sort of boundary between each level, especially at the cellular level. Another thing is they have to show some sort of movement. Either they physically move from one point to another, or there is movement within them, such as chemical reactions or movement of organelles or whatever, something that's going on inside that is creating a movement inside. Then there has to be some sort of responsiveness. In other words, when there's a change, an external change, they have to be able to sense it and actually do something about it, to be responsive to that change in some way. Another characteristic is digestion. They need to be able to actually bring in nutrients, to break those down, to transfer the energy into something that can actually be used by the cell itself. So living things actually do bring in something in the human body. We're going to bring in the materials from outside, but we're going to break them down into something that can be used internally. And the lowest level of doing that would be the cell. Another life function would be the chemical reactions that are going on inside the body, otherwise known as metabolism. And these chemical reactions are going to have several different possibilities. They're either going to be synthetic, they're going to be making something, or they're going to be degradative, which means they may be breaking something down, or they may be some sort of exchange reaction where they're just recombining different elements. But most of this metabolism is basically the results of making energy, and we always have to have energy to have life and to keep doing things. So metabolism is going to be the main chemical reaction that's going to be used to both make energy and also to make our body structures, our proteins, our different things that's within the cell. And then when we're making things, then that means that sometimes we're going to produce wastes from those metabolic reactions. So we've got to be able to get rid of those wastes so we don't build up toxicity. Living things also have the ability to reproduce, or to either reproduce by mitosis, where they divide, or reproduce by sexual reproduction, where one organism produces gametes and another organism produces gametes, and then the gametes are fertilized to restore the full number of chromosomes. So living things have that ability to produce a future generation. Living things also have the ability to grow. So growth can include the growth of the individual, or even be part of the reproductive process, where we're going to increase the number of our cells or our living entity, whatever level we're talking about. Of course, living things have the need to survive. So if you think about what would you need to survive, obviously something you're going to need is food or nutrients. And of course, the reason why we eat food is because they actually provide the raw materials for our cells, or including if the cell is building, a structure, or if the cell is actually going through cellular respiration to produce ATP energy. So our nutrients, of course, are mostly the organic things that we eat, the carbohydrates, proteins, and lipids, but it does include some inorganic substances such as water, vitamins, and minerals. Another survival need is obviously we have to breathe, and the oxygen is mainly required for us to actually make our ATP, but oxygen is required for different chemical reactions going on in the body. We just mentioned water, but we are mostly water, so we're going to have to always be including water in this survival mechanism. We have to keep replacing water because we keep losing water. So since we are anywhere from 60 to 80% body weight of water, or maybe even a little bit less than that, but since we're mostly water, and since all of our fluids inside our body are derived from our blood, and our blood is mostly water, then this is going to be something that we are going to have to maintain certain levels of. We're also going to have to maintain our body temperature, and of course we know our muscles produce the heat, our blood actually circulates that heat, so there's going to be a range of which we're going to have to keep our temperature at to remain healthy. And then even atmospheric pressure, which we don't think about all that much unless we're going way up in atmosphere or very deep in the ocean somewhere where the atmospheric pressure needs to change. But there is some gas laws that are applied if we change our atmospheric pressure too fast. So anyway, it's one of those things we don't often think about, but it is important.